Hello, my name is Ashlyn Castro, and I will be giving a presentation on human rights and crimes. My presentation will cover the explanation of what human rights are and some discrepancies still regarding them, the problems of human rights, the United States' involvement with human rights violations, what we can do to help, and predictions for the future. What are human rights? Merriam-Webster defines human rights as freedom from unlawful imprisonment, torture, and execution regarded as belonging fundamentally to all persons. In an analysis of the presidential address, it stated, the best philosophical account of human rights regards them as protections of the values we attach to human agency. The international law of human rights is embodied in a large number of declarations, covenants, charters, and judicial decisions. Yet there are still discrepancies on what are basic human rights, who should receive them, and how much they should be given. So there are several issues in regards to human rights. One of the most basic ones is adequate housing. So one of the issues is that tenure. So tenure would be to possess a degree of security which guarantees legal protection against eviction and harassment. Affordability, which means that a person or household costs and can still meet the need while they're paying rent of their basic needs of their family. Living would cover adequate space and protection from cold, damp, heat, rain, wind, or other threats to health and hazards. Also, they must have safe drinking water, sanitation, energy to cook, heat and lighting, washing, food storage, and places of disposal, which needs adequate for specific needs of disadvantaged and marginalized groups. The location needs to be near their employer, health care, school care, child care, and social facilities. So another issue would be good governance, which the issue is corruption from the right to adequate standards of living, management of public services, and there's not enough policies and laws, and the government are all for themselves and not for the people that they're governing. So in the American Anti-Corruption Act, it states that you cannot conspire to commit offense or defraud the United States. But a lot of countries don't have laws or things of that nature to protect them against corrupt governments. So also the discrimination. So an issue is that people are discriminated, which helps to increase poverty, which puts people at a disadvantage and violates rights. So a few laws on that would be the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Equal Pay Act, which aim to abolish wage and disparity based on sex. Age Discrimination Employment Act, which protects individuals who are employed that are 40 years of age and older from discrimination based on age. The Americans with Disability Act, which prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities and prohibits them and creates it as a federal sector and remedies attorney fees. So discrimination led to people in poverty by creating a disadvantage which violates rights. So federal law prohibits employers from discriminating against employees on the basis of sex, race, color, nationality, origin, and religion. Another huge issue would be education. So education is a fundamental right that is essential to millions of people, but yet millions still remain uneducated with education unavailable. So under that, under the Hagues of 1907 relations, the 1949 Geneva Convention, and International Rome Statute, and humanitarian law, it states that all help to protect education, and it shall be treated as a property that each person shall receive. Other problems would be food. So the issue to meet hunger standards of food is not provided to people. So the issue on hunger is growing, and it is a fundamental right. So this, which originated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, Article 25, which states the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights every human, which should include food. Health is another huge issue. So the issue, people do not have adequate access to health care. Laws who constitute that, which would be in the Constitution in 1946, which help with the International Covenant on Economic, Article 12, Social and Cultural Rights in 1966. So those are a few laws that protect healthcare. A recent one would also be the Obamacare Act, which made every citizen required to have healthcare. Another major issue is sexual orientation. The states have obligated to protect individuals from homophobic and transphobic violence, prevent torture and cruel, human, and degrading treatment, repeal laws criminalizing homosexuality and transgender, prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, safeguard freedom of persons associated and peaceful assembly of the LGBT. Terrorism. So terrorism is an ongoing issue that is still really relevant today. So some laws that they have the Counterterrorism Committee, which has a lot of different strategies. In 2001, there's a base on the resolution, which they have adopted strategies for combating foreign fights in Syria and Iraq, minimalizing threats to Europe to defeat ISIS. The Informal European Council in 2015 ensures security of citizens, radicalism, and safeguards values in cooperating with international parties. So in 2001, based on Resolution 1373, oversees implementation of counterterrorism policies. There have Task Force Resolution in 1624 condemned aspects of terrorism, counterterrorism strategies in 2015 as well, which I already previously stated. So another major issue is torture. So torture is stated as any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or third person information or confession. So laws that prohibit that, one would be the Jus Coker, which supersedes all other treaties and customary laws. So under an act of torture, anyone can take jurisdiction. No detainee can be tortured regardless of citizenship. The next issue is human trafficking, which involves exploitation, which comes in many forms, including forcing victims into prostitution, subjecting victims to slavery or involuntary servitude, compelling victims to commit sex acts for the purpose of creating pornography. So there are many laws that protect human trafficking victims. One of them is the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. So there are several methods, which include prosecuting traffickers. They help prevent trafficking. They protect victims and survivors. They made human trafficking a federal crime with severe penalties, and they mandate paid restitution to victims. The Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act of 2003 established a federal civil right for victims to sue trafficking and add human trafficking to be charged under RICO. In 2005, it included a pilot program for sheltering minors who survived human trafficking and grant programs to assist state and local law enforcement to combat human trafficking. In 2008, it included new prevention strategies and government mandates to educate employees. So another major issue is water and sanitation. So 1.1 billion people in developing countries lack clean drinking water because it is either too far away, polluted, or there is not a sufficient amount. So laws that protect this, in September of 2010, the United Human Rights Council Resolution of Human Rights and Access to Clean Drinking Water, which made clean drinking water a human right and helped a lot more people get this right of clean drinking water. So what is the United States doing to help? So one of the major things that we can do as United States citizens would be to donate. So there are many programs. The two largest would be Human Rights First and Amnesty International, which provide many forms of money to people for human rights violations. Different organizations that help would be the military, the Peace Corps, international labor organizations, the Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Lawyers Committee for Human Rights, Teachers of America, Doctors Without Borders, and many more. What can we do to help? So, jobs in any of the above organizations that I stated on the previous slide. So, becoming a human rights lawyer, a human rights coordinator, even a documentary filmmaker to expose the human rights violations in other countries, an activist, an overseas researcher, working with the United Nations, and even just volunteering. So one of the most important things to do before getting involved in helping the fight against human rights violations would be to educate yourself about other countries, what is being violated, and how one can help. So those would be great to do with programs with colleges and with professions as well. So predictions for the future. There are very many predictions for the future on what is going to happen in regards to human rights and crime. One theory would be that terrorism will win and human rights will continue to be violated. Others believe that with all of the growing programs, human rights will no longer be violated. I hope for the latter, but only time will tell with the increased volume of people involved in human rights violations and protecting people. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation and you learned a little bit more about human rights and crimes. And hopefully you can find a way to get involved in preventing later human rights violations. Thank you.